The morning sun rose over New Geneva like it had for the past 50 years. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the colony's main street, watching as humans and aliens worked side by side. A Veltar engineer helped fix a broken water pipe while her human partner held the tools. 3 Zephyrian children played with human kids in the nearby park, their blue skin shining in the sunlight. Sarah smiled. This was what humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. Peace. Understanding. A future where different species could live together and learn from each other. She reached the research center where she worked. The building was a mix of human engineering and alien design. Smooth curves from Veltar architecture blended with the straight lines that humans preferred. Inside, her team was already working. "Good morning, Sarah," called out Dr. Keftar, a tall Zephyrian scientist with 4 arms. "The soil samples from Sector 7 are ready for analysis." "Thanks, Kef," Sarah replied, setting down her coffee. "Any interesting findings?" A human researcher named Mike looked up from his microscope. "We found 3 new types of bacteria. They might be useful for food production." Sarah nodded. This was typical for New Geneva. Every day brought new discoveries. The colony was built on a planet that had never supported life before, but human terraforming had made it green and beautiful. Now it was home to 10 million people from 12 different species. The work was important. They were creating new medicines, better crops, and cleaner energy. The research done here helped billions of people across the galaxy. But more than that, New Geneva proved that different species could work together and build something amazing. Sarah spent the morning reviewing data with her mixed team of human and alien scientists. They were close to a breakthrough in treating a disease that affected both humans and Veltar. It was the kind of work that made her proud to be human. At lunch, she met her husband Tom at their favorite restaurant. The owner was a Kethvar named Zorthak. The Kethvar were a proud species with gray skin and 6 eyes. They had never been the friendliest aliens, but Zorthak was different. He had come to New Geneva 5 years ago and opened his restaurant. His food was strange but delicious, the usual? Zorthak asked as they sat down. "Of course," Tom laughed. "Your spice mix is getting better every week." Zorthak's 6 eyes blinked, and what Sarah had learned was the Kethavar version of a smile. "I learn from human cooking. We make it better together." As they ate, Sarah and Tom talked about their day. Tom worked in the colony's engineering department. He was helping design a new type of building that could survive the planet's strong storms. "We're using Zephyrian crystal technology with human steel frames," Tom explained. "It should be able to handle winds up to 300 kilometers per hour. Sarah was impressed. "That's amazing. The old buildings could barely handle half that." "That's what happens when different species work together," Tom said. "We all bring something different to the table." After lunch, Sarah returned to work. The afternoon was quiet, with her team focused on their experiments. She was looking at bacteria samples when the first alarm went off. The sound was soft at first, just a gentle beeping. Then it got louder and louder. Mike looked up from his work. "What's that sound?" Before Sarah could answer, the emergency light started flashing red. A voice came over the colony's communication system. "All citizens, this is Colony Director Walsh. Unknown ships have appeared in orbit. This is not a drill. Please remain calm and wait for further instructions." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. New Geneva had never had visitors without warning. All scheduled arrivals were announced days in advance. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then she noticed them. Small dots against the blue sky growing larger by the minute. "Those are big ships," Keftar said, joining her at the window. His voice was worried. More and more dots appeared. Sarah counted 10, then 20, then stopped counting. There were too many to track. The communication system crackled again. "Citizens of New Geneva, this is Director Walsh. The ships in orbit have identified themselves as belonging to the Kethvar hegemony. We are attempting to establish communication." Sarah looked at her alien colleagues. The Zephyrians looked nervous. The Veltar seemed confused. But it was the reaction of the few Kethvar researchers in the building that worried her most. They looked terrified. "Dr. Yethkol," Sarah called to one of the Kethvar scientists. "Do you know what this is about?" Dr. Yethkol's 6 eyes were wide with fear. "The hegemony fleet. They only travel in full force for one reason." "What reason?" Sarah asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "Purification," Yethkol whispered. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, the communication system came on again. But this time it wasn't Director Walsh's voice. The voice was cold and spoke in the clicking language of the HFY. Then it switched to English. "Inhabitants of the contaminated world," the voice said, "you have polluted this sector with your mixing of species. The natural order has been violated. This contamination will be cleansed." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Around the room, her colleagues looked at each other in shock. "This must be a mistake," Mike said. "We haven't done anything wrong." Director Walsh's voice came back on. "Unknown HFY vessels, this is Director Walsh of New Geneva Colony. We are a peaceful research colony operating under the Galactic Peace Accords. We request immediate communication to resolve any misunderstanding." The response came quickly. The alien voice was even colder than before. "There is no misunderstanding. Your colony represents a violation of species purity. Different species were meant to remain separate. You have created an abomination. The cleansing begins now." Sarah ran to her communication device and tried to contact Tom. The signal was blocked. She tried the emergency channels. Also blocked. Outside, the dots in the sky had become clear shapes. Massive warships hung in the air like dark clouds. Sarah had never seen ships so big or so frightening. Dr. Yethkol was crying, a strange sound from a HFY. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I never thought they would find us here." The building's emergency system activated. Metal shutters began closing over the windows. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. "All citizens report to emergency shelters immediately," Director Walsh's voice announced. "This is not a drill." "Repeat, this is not a drill." Sarah grabbed her emergency bag and ran toward the exit. Her colleagues followed, humans and aliens together, just like always. But as they reached the door, the first energy blast hit the ground outside. The blast was so bright that Sarah had to close her eyes. When she opened them, a crater the size of a building had appeared in the middle of the street. The restaurant where she had eaten lunch was gone. There was no sign of Zorthak. More blasts followed. Buildings disappeared in flashes of light. People screamed and ran in all directions. Sarah saw a group of Veltar children running toward a shelter. A blast hit right next to them. When the light faded, the children were gone. "They're killing everyone," Mike shouted over the noise. "They're not even trying to avoid civilians." Sarah realized with growing horror that this wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. The HFY hegemony had come to New Geneva for one purpose: to kill everyone on the planet. As she ran toward the nearest shelter, Sarah activated her personal recorder. If she was going to die, she wanted someone to know what happened here. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of New Geneva Colony," she said into the device. 10 million people live here. Humans, Veltar, Zephyrians, and others. We've done nothing wrong. We've only tried to build something beautiful together. But they're killing us anyway. They're killing us all." The last thing Sarah saw before the shelter door closed was the sky filling with fire. 18 months after New Geneva died, the emergency beacon finally reached Earth. The small device had drifted through space, carrying its terrible message across the void. When Earth's deep space monitoring station picked up the signal, the technician on duty thought it was a mistake. The beacon's message was simple, but horrifying. Video recordings from the colony's final days, personal messages from the dying, and Dr. Sarah Chen's last transmission, recorded as her world burned around her. Admiral Sarah Morrison was the first high-ranking official to review the complete files. She sat in her office in Geneva, Earth, watching footage that made her sick to her stomach. The HFY ships had taken 3 days to kill everyone on New Geneva. 3 days of systematic murder. The beacon showed everything. Children hiding in shelters while energy blasts tore through the walls. Hospitals destroyed with patients still inside. Escape pods launched desperately into space, only to be hunted down and destroyed by HFY fighters. In one recording, a human teacher named Mark Stevens was trying to protect a group of mixed-species children. As HFY soldiers broke into their shelter, Stevens looked into his camera and said, "We trusted them. We thought all intelligent species could live together. We were wrong." Admiral Morrison had seen war before. She had fought in the border conflicts and the Titan Rebellion, but she had never seen anything like this. This wasn't war. This was extermination. She called Chancellor Maria Santos immediately. "Ma'am, you need to see this," Morrison said when the Chancellor answered. 2 hours later, Santos sat in the same chair, watching the same horrible footage. Her face was stone, but Morrison could see tears in her eyes. How many? Santos asked when the recordings ended. 10,300,000 people, Morrison replied. Humans made up about 60% of the population. The rest were from 11 other species. Santos was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "What do we know about the HFY response?" Morrison handed her a datapad. They've made public statements justifying the attack. They claim New Geneva was a contamination that threatened the natural order of species separation. Their Supreme Arch gave a speech calling it a necessary cleansing. And the other species? What do they say? The Veltar government has condemned the attack but says they won't get involved in any conflict. The Zephyrians are calling for a peaceful solution. Most other species are staying quiet. Santos nodded slowly. Call an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. Every representative, every military leader, every department head. I want them all in the chamber tomorrow morning. The next day, representatives from across human space gathered. In the assembly hall, the great chamber was packed with more people than it had held since the formation of the Earth Alliance 50 years earlier. Chancellor Santos took the podium. Behind her, a massive screen showed the New Geneva Colony logo, a circle with 12 different species symbols inside it. Friends, colleagues, fellow humans, Santos began. Yesterday we learned that 10 million of our people are dead. They died not in war, not in conflict, but because they chose to live alongside other species in peace. The screen changed to show footage from New Geneva before the attack. Happy families, mixed species work teams, children playing together. The chamber was completely silent. The HFY hegemony has claimed responsibility for this massacre. They say our people deserve to die because they chose cooperation over separation. They say this was justice. Santos paused, letting her words sink in. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. I disagree. What happened at New Geneva was not justice. It was murder. And murder demands a response. The screen showed the final moments of New Geneva. Energy blasts destroying buildings. People running and screaming. The last transmission from Dr. Chen, begging someone to remember what had happened. Many representatives were crying now. Others looked angry. All of them looked determined. The HFY believe they have taught us a lesson, Santos continued. They believe they have shown us our place in the galaxy. They are wrong. Today, we will show them what happens when someone murders 10 million humans. She gestured to Admiral Morrison, who stepped forward. The HFY hegemony controls 47 star systems, Morrison announced. Their military has approximately 800 capital ships and 3,000 smaller vessels. Their technology is advanced, particularly their energy weapons and shield systems. A representative from Mars raised her hand. Admiral, how does that compare to our current military strength? Morrison smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. On paper, they're stronger. They have better weapons, better shields, more ships. In a direct fight, we would probably lose. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Another representative spoke up. Then how can we respond? We can't fight a war we can't win. Chancellor Santos stepped back to the podium. Representative Chen raises a good point. We cannot fight the HFY the way they expect us to fight, so we won't. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many people as she could. The HFY think they understand humanity. They think we are a young species, barely out of our home system with primitive technology and simple minds. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Santos gestured to Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief science advisor. Dr. Vasquez stood up, looking nervous but determined. For the past 6 months, we've been working on projects that I can now reveal to you, Dr. Vasquez said. Project Lighthouse has developed a new type of faster-than-light drive that's completely undetectable. Project Mirror has created shield technology that's superior to anything currently in use. Project Hammer has produced weapons that can destroy entire fleets with a single shot. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Representative Morrison from Luna stood up. Dr. Vasquez, how is this possible? Our technology has always been behind most alien species. Dr. Vasquez looked at Chancellor Santos, who nodded. Because we've been hiding our true capabilities, Dr. Vasquez said. For 50 years, humanity has been pretending to be less advanced than we really are. We wanted to be seen as peaceful, non-threatening. We wanted other species to trust us. She paused, letting that sink in. That trust got 10 million of our people killed, so we're done pretending. Admiral Morrison stepped forward again. The Kethvar have 47 star systems and 800 capital ships. What they don't know is that we've been watching them for 20 years. We know the location of every ship, every base, every important facility they have. Santos took control again. Here is what's going to happen. In 72 hours, I will send a message to the Kethvar Supremarch. I will offer him one chance to surrender the individuals responsible for the New Geneva massacre and pay reparations to the families of the dead. She paused, her voice getting colder. When he refuses, and he will refuse, we will show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. A representative from Europa raised his hand. Chancellor, what exactly are you planning? Santos looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked around the entire chamber. The Kethvar killed 10 million people because they thought those people were inferior. They thought humanity was weak. They thought our cooperation with other species made us soft. Her voice rose. They are about to discover that the only thing keeping them safe was our choice to be peaceful. The chamber was completely silent now. I am not talking about a war, Santos continued. Wars have rules. Wars have limits. Wars can be lost, she paused. I am talking about justice. And justice for 10 million dead is not something that can be negotiated or compromised. Representative Chen spoke up again. Chancellor, are you saying we're going to destroy the entire Kethvar civilization? Santos looked directly at her. I'm saying that the Kethvar hegemony chose to judge 10 million innocent people and found them worthy of death. Now humanity will judge the Kethvar hegemony. She turned to address the entire chamber one final time. We promised our colonists that we would protect them. We failed. Now we promise them something else, justice, complete, total, and final justice. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted to authorize whatever response Chancellor Santos deemed necessary. As the session ended and representatives filed out of the chamber, Admiral Morrison approached Santos. Ma'am, are you sure about this? Once we show our true capabilities, everything changes. Other species will never see us the same way again. Santos looked at the screen, which still showed the New Geneva colony logo. 12 species living together in harmony. Admiral, after what the Kethvar did, everything has already changed. The only question now is whether the galaxy learns to respect humanity or learns to fear us. She turned away from the screen. Frankly, after watching 10 million people die for the crime of being peaceful, I no longer care which one it is. The Kethvar patrol ship Dominance of Order was conducting a routine scan of their border systems when something impossible happened. 67 human ships appeared out of nowhere. Commander Vithak stared at his sensors in confusion. The readings made no sense. His equipment showed the human ships, but their signatures were wrong. They seemed to flicker in and out of existence like ghosts. Communications. Hail the human fleet, Vithak ordered. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, his communications officer replied. The main screen activated, showing a human face. The man was older, with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore the uniform of Earth's military. I am Admiral Jackson Hayes of the United Earth Fleet, the human said. Commander Vithak, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Vithak's 6 eyes narrowed. Human, you are in violation of Kethvar space. Retreat immediately or you will be destroyed. Admiral Hayes smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Commander, your ship is already disabled. Check your systems. Vithak looked at his tactical officer, who was frantically working at his console. The Kethvar's face went pale. Sir, weapons are offline. Engines are offline. Life support is... How is this possible? Vithak looked back at the screen. What have you done to my ship? We've done nothing yet, Hayes replied. We're simply showing you what we could do if we wanted to. Your ship is now completely under our control. We could shut off your life support, overload your reactor, or simply make your ship disappear. But we're not going to do any of those things. Why not? Vithak asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Because killing you quickly would be a mercy, and after what your people did to New Geneva, mercy is not something we're prepared to offer. Hayes leaned forward. Instead, you're going to take a message to your Supremarch. Tell him that the human fleet is coming. Tell him that we know about every ship, every base, every world in Kethvar space. And tell him that we're going to dismantle his entire civilization piece by piece. The transmission ended. A moment later, the Dominance of Order's systems came back online. But as they did, Vithak noticed something that made his blood run cold. His ship's computer now had new programming that he couldn't access or remove. The humans had changed his ship's basic systems in a matter of minutes. When Vithak tried to contact other Kethvar ships in the area, he found that half of them no longer responded. The others reported the same thing he had experienced. Human ships appearing from nowhere, disabling their vessels with unknown technology, then disappearing again. 3 days later, Vithak delivered his message to the Supremarch on the capital world of Kethvar Prime. Supremarch Zoltek was the supreme leader of the Kethvar hegemony. He was old, even by Kethvar standards, and had ruled for over 200 years. He had conquered 17 species and destroyed 6 civilizations that refused to submit to Kethvar rule. But as he listened to Commander Vithak's report, Zoltek felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. "You're telling me that 67 human ships disabled your patrol fleet without firing a single shot?" Zoltek asked. "Yes, Supremarch. They took control of our systems as if they were their own. Our weapons, our engines, even our life support, everything was under their control." Zoltek's military advisor, General Korthan, stepped forward. "Supremarch, this is impossible. Our intelligence reports say that human technology is primitive compared to ours. Their ships are slow, their weapons are weak, their shields are basic." "Then explain what happened to my patrol fleet," Zoltek growled. Before anyone could answer, an alarm began sounding throughout the palace. A communications officer rushed into the throne room. "Supremarch, we're receiving reports from across our territory. Human ships are attacking our supply convoys, but they're not destroying them. They're stealing them." "Stealing them?" Zoltek repeated. "Yes, sir. The ships disappear, along with all their cargo. Our escorts report that their weapons simply stopped working when they tried to fight back." More reports came in over the following hours. Human ships were appearing throughout Kethvar space, but they weren't acting like a normal military force. Instead of attacking planets or military bases directly, they were targeting infrastructure. Communication relays went offline one by one. Trade routes became unsafe as cargo ships disappeared without a trace. Space stations found their life support systems failing for no apparent reason. But strangest of all, no Kethvar had actually been killed. Ships were disabled, not destroyed. Crews were left floating in space in emergency pods, but they were always rescued within hours by other Kethvar vessels. "What are they doing?" General Korthan asked during an emergency strategy meeting. "They're showing us that they can destroy us anytime they want," Zoltek replied grimly, "but they're choosing not to. Yet." A week into what the humans were calling Operation Justice, the Kethvar military tried to mount a counterattack. A fleet of 200 Kethvar warships moved to intercept a group of human vessels near the Kethvar colony of Righteous Judgment. The Kethvar fleet was commanded by Admiral Yethmor, one of their most experienced military leaders. He had destroyed the last remnants of the Veltar resistance 20 years earlier and had never lost a battle. "All ships, attack formation," Yethmor ordered, as his fleet approached the human position. "Target their command vessel first." But as the Kethvar ships prepared to fire, something impossible happened. The human ships simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. Where did they go? Yethmor demanded. His sensor officer was working frantically at his console. "I don't know, sir. They just disappeared. Then the human ships reappeared. But now they were inside the Kethvar formation, moving between the Kethvar vessels as if the alien ships weren't even there. "Sir, the human ships are passing through our shields like they don't exist," his tactical officer reported. Yethmor watched in horror as human ships moved through his fleet like ghosts. They weren't firing, they weren't attacking. They were just demonstrating that every single Kethvar defense was useless against them. Then Admiral Hayes' voice came over the communication system. "Admiral Yethmor, this is Admiral Hayes. Do you see what we're doing?" "Impossible technology," Yethmor muttered. "No, Admiral. This is what happens when you underestimate your enemy. Your people killed 10 million humans because you thought we were weak. You thought our cooperation with other species made us soft. You were wrong." Hayes' voice became colder. "Every ship in your fleet is now carrying a small device that we placed there while we were moving through your formation. Those devices could destroy your ships instantly, but we're not going to activate them." "Why not?" Yethmor asked. "Because we want you to go back to your Supremarch. We want you to tell him that the human fleet can go anywhere, do anything and destroy everything in Kethvar space. But we're choosing not to. Yet." The human ships disappeared again, leaving the Kethvar fleet alone and helpless. When Admiral Yethmor returned to Kethvar Prime, he was a broken man. The most successful military commander in Kethvar history had been made to look like a child playing with toys. "Supremarch," he said as he knelt before Zolthek's throne, "we cannot fight these humans. Their technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered." Zolthek was about to respond when another alarm sounded. This time it was different. This was the alarm that meant the capital world itself was under attack. But when they looked at the tactical displays, there were no human ships anywhere near Kethvar Prime. "What's happening?" Zolthek demanded. His science advisor, Dr. Melkoth, looked up from her instruments with terror in her 6 eyes. "Supremarch, it's our sun. Something is happening to our sun." On the main display, they could see Kethvar Prime's star, but something was wrong. The star was flickering like a candle in the wind. "That's impossible," General Corthan said. "No one has technology that can affect a star." Dr. Melkoth's voice was barely a whisper. "The humans do." As they watched, the star flickered again. And again. Each time it grew dimmer. Then Admiral Hayes's voice filled the throne room, broadcast on every communication channel in the system. "Supremarch Zolthek, this is Admiral Hayes. By now you've noticed that your star is behaving strangely. This is just a demonstration of what we can do." Zolthek found his voice. "What do you want, human?" "I want you to understand something very important, Supremarch. Your people killed 10 million humans because you thought you were superior. You thought you had the right to judge other species and decide who lives and who dies." The star flickered again, and the light in the throne room dimmed noticeably. "Today we are judging you, Supremarch. We are judging your entire species, and we have found you guilty of murder." Zolthek felt fear like he had never known before. "What? What are you going to do?" "We are going to give you the same choice you gave the people of New Geneva. Surrender and face justice, or resist and face annihilation." The communication ended, leaving the Kethvar leadership in stunned silence. Outside the palace windows, they could see that their star was still flickering. With each flicker, their world grew a little colder. For the first time in his long life, Supremarch Zolthek realized that his species might not survive the next few days. The Galactic Council had never called an emergency session like this one. Representatives from 43 species crowded into the Great Chamber on the neutral world of Harmony Station. They had come because of the reports flooding in from Kethvar space. Ambassador Velnara of the Veltar spoke first. Her blue skin was pale with worry. "Fellow representatives, we have received disturbing reports about human military actions against the Kethvar hegemony. Our intelligence suggests that the humans have developed technology far beyond what any of us believed possible." She gestured to a holographic display showing the Kethvar star system. 3 days ago, the humans somehow caused the Kethvar Prime star to flicker. This should be impossible with any known technology. Ambassador Zephlon of the Zephyrian stood up next. His forearms gestured in the formal pattern of his species. "The Zephyrian Science Council has reviewed the data. We agree that what the humans have done defies our understanding of physics. But we must remember that the Kethvar massacred 10 million innocent people on New Geneva. Perhaps the humans have the right to seek justice." "Justice?" Ambassador Velnara's voice was sharp. "What the humans are doing goes far beyond justice. They are threatening to destroy entire star systems." The chamber erupted in worried voices from dozens of species. Some agreed that the humans had gone too far. Others argued that the Kethvar deserved whatever happened to them. Ambassador Korthak, representing the few remaining free Kethvar colonies, stood to speak. His gray skin was darker than usual, a sign of stress in his species. "Honored representatives, I come before you not as a defender of the hegemony, but as a voice for billions of innocent Kethvar civilians. Yes, the hegemony committed a terrible crime at New Geneva, but the humans are threatening to destroy our entire species." He activated a holographic display showing reports from across Kethvar space. "In the past week, human forces have disabled over 300 of our ships without destroying them. They have taken control of our communication networks. They have stolen our supply convoys, and now they are somehow manipulating our stars." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "If the humans can control stars themselves," Korthak continued, "then no species in the galaxy is safe from them. Today it is the Kethvar. Tomorrow it could be any of us." Before anyone could respond, a new voice filled the chamber. "The Galactic Council will now recognize the representative from Earth. Everyone turned to see Chancellor Maria Santos walking into the chamber. She was followed by Admiral Hayes and Dr. Vasquez. No one had expected the human leadership to attend this meeting. Santos walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. "Fellow representatives," she said, "I understand there has been some concern about humanity's response to the New Geneva massacre." Ambassador Velnara stood up. "Chancellor Santos, we appreciate your presence here. The Council hopes we can find a peaceful solution to this crisis." Santos turned to look at her directly. "Ambassador Velnara, where was the Council when 10 million people were being murdered on New Geneva? Where was the call for peaceful solutions when children were being burned alive in their schools?" The chamber was completely silent. "I'll tell you where the Council was," Santos continued. "You were debating whether the massacre was really that bad. You were discussing whether the Kethvar had legitimate reasons for their actions. You were urging patience and understanding." She walked to the central display and activated it, showing footage from New Geneva's final days. "This is what patience got us. This is what understanding accomplished." The display showed Dr. Sarah Chen's final message, recorded as her world died around her. Her words echoed through the chamber. "We trusted them. We thought all intelligent species could live together. We were wrong." Santos let the message play out completely before speaking again. "The Kethvar hegemony made a choice. They chose to judge 10 million innocent people and sentence them to death. Now humanity is making a choice. We are judging the Kethvar hegemony." Ambassador Zeflon gestured formally. "Chancellor Santos, we understand your anger. But surely there must be a way to resolve this without destroying an entire civilization?" Santos looked at him for a long moment. "Ambassador, your people lost 3 million citizens to Kethvar purification campaigns 20 years ago. Did the Council help you then?" Zeflon's forearms drooped. The answer was obvious to everyone in the chamber. "The Council offered thoughts and prayers," Santos said, "just like you're offering now." Ambassador Korthak stepped forward. "Chancellor Santos, I beg you to consider the innocent civilians in Kethvar space. Billions of people who had nothing to do with New Geneva." Santos turned to face him. "Ambassador Korthak, where were those innocent civilians when your government was murdering children on New Geneva? Where were their voices of protest? Where were their demands for justice?" She gestured to Admiral Hayes, who activated another display. "This is the official response from the Kethvar hegemony after New Geneva," Hayes announced. "Public celebrations. Statements calling the massacre a glorious cleansing. Supramark Zoltek personally awarded medals to the fleet commanders responsible." The display showed Kethvar civilians cheering in the streets. News broadcast praising the destruction of the contaminated colony. Military parades celebrating the successful mission. "Your people didn't just allow this to happen," Santos said to Korthak. "They celebrated it." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives demanded that humanity show mercy. Others said the Kethvar deserved their fate. The noise grew louder and louder until Santos raised her hand. "Enough," she said quietly, but her voice carried throughout the chamber. The room fell silent again. "I didn't come here to ask for permission," Santos said. "I came here to deliver a message. In 72 hours, humanity will offer the Kethvar hegemony one final chance for surrender." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. "We will demand that Supremarch Zoltek and every military officer involved in the New Geneva massacre surrender themselves for trial. We will demand full reparations to the families of the dead. And we will demand that the Kethvar hegemony dissolve itself and place all former territory under Council administration." Ambassador Velnara stood up quickly. "Chancellor Santos, those demands are impossible. No sovereign government would accept such terms." Santos smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then they will face the consequences of refusing." "What consequences?" Korthak asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "Representatives, you have been wondering how humanity developed such advanced technology so quickly. The truth is we didn't develop it quickly. We've had these capabilities for decades." The chamber filled with shocked voices. "For 50 years, Dr. Vasquez continued, humanity has been pretending to be less advanced than we really are. We wanted to be trusted. We wanted to be seen as peaceful and cooperative." She gestured to the display, which now showed technical specifications that made no sense to most of the assembled representatives. "Our stellar engineering technology can destabilize any star in the galaxy. Our transportation systems can move entire fleets across space in minutes. Our defensive capabilities make our ships effectively invulnerable. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humanity had technology this advanced, then every military calculation, every strategic assessment, every balance of power in the galaxy was wrong. Admiral Hayes spoke next. The only thing protecting any of your civilizations from humanity was our choice to be peaceful. The Kethvar took away that choice when they murdered 10 million of our people. Santos took control again. So here is the situation. The Kethvar have 72 hours to surrender. If they refuse, we will demonstrate what happens when humanity stops pretending to be weak. She turned to walk toward the exit, then stopped. And representatives, I suggest you all consider very carefully how your own governments have treated human colonies and citizens over the years. Because after we finish with the Kethvar, we're going to have a lot of time to review our diplomatic relationships. As the human delegation left the chamber, the representatives sat in stunned silence. They had thought they were dealing with a conflict between two civilizations. Instead, they had just learned that the entire balance of power in the galaxy was built on humanity's willingness to pretend to be something they weren't. Ambassador. Felnara was the first to speak. What have we done? She whispered. The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Every representative in the chamber knew that the galaxy was about to change forever. The only question was whether any of them would survive what came next. Outside the station, hidden from all sensors, 300 human ships waited in perfect silence. They had been there all along, watching and listening. The galaxy's leaders had finally learned the truth about humanity. But for 10 million dead on New Geneva, the truth had come far too late. The 72 hours passed like a countdown to the end of the world. Throughout Kethvar space, billions of people watched their leaders debate humanity's ultimatum. Supreme Arch Zolthek had called an emergency session of the High Command, but the arguments had been going in circles for 3 days. We cannot surrender, General Corthan insisted for the 100th time. The Kethvar hegemony has never bowed to any species. We will not start now. And what about our people? Dr. Melkoth asked. What about the billions of civilians who will die if we refuse? Admiral Yethmore, still shaken from his encounter with the human fleet, spoke quietly. You didn't see what I saw. Their ships move through our defenses like they don't exist. They took control of our most advanced vessels without firing a shot. Zolthek sat on his throne listening to the arguments. His 6 eyes were focused on the reports from across his empire. Kethvar Prime's star was still flickering. 3 other stars in Kethvar space had begun showing similar signs, and human ships continued to appear and disappear throughout his territory like ghosts. Supreme Arch, his communications officer, announced, We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through, Zoltek commanded. The main screen activated, showing Chancellor Santos aboard what appeared to be a human command ship. Behind her, Admiral Hayes and Dr. Vasquez stood at attention. Supreme Arch Zoltek, Santos said. The 72 hours have expired. What is your response to our demands? Zoltek stood up slowly. Every eye in the command center was on him. His next words would determine the fate of his entire species. Chancellor Santos, the Kethvar hegemony, does not negotiate with inferior species. We do not surrender to primitives. New Geneva was cleansed because it was a contamination, and we would do it again. The silence in the command center was complete. Even General Corthan looked shocked by the Supreme Arch's words. Santos nodded slowly. I expected that answer, Supreme Arch. Thank you for making our choice easy. What choice? Zolthek demanded. The choice of how to deliver justice for 10 million dead. Santos looked directly into the camera. You have declared that you would murder 10 million innocent people again if given the chance. Therefore, we declare that you have forfeited your right to exist. The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Dr. Melkoth's instruments began screaming with alarms. Supreme Arch, the star is destabilizing. On the main display, they could see Kethvar Prime's sun flickering faster and faster. With each flicker, it grew dimmer. The temperature readings from across the planet began dropping rapidly. How long do we have? Zoltek asked. At this rate, maybe 6 hours before the star goes completely dark. After that, the planet will freeze within days. More reports came flooding in. Every star in Kethvar space was showing the same signs. 47 star systems, home to over 50 billion people, were all going dark at the same time. General Corthan stared at the displays in horror. This is impossible. No one has this kind of power. The humans do, Admiral Yethmore said quietly. I told you. We never understood what we were dealing with. Across the galaxy, other species watched in terror as the Kethvar star systems began to die. Every government, every military, every scientist was asking the same question. If humanity could kill stars, what else could they do? On Harmony Station, the Galactic Council held another emergency session. But this time, no one was debating whether humanity had gone too far. They were all trying to figure out how to avoid becoming the next target. Ambassador Velnara spoke first, her voice shaking. The human fleet has sent a message to all council members. They want us to witness what they call the final judgment. As she spoke, the main display activated, showing feeds from across Kethvar space. World after world was going dark as their stars died. Billions of people were evacuating to underground shelters or trying to escape on spacecraft. But the Kethvar fleet, once the most feared military force in the galaxy, was completely helpless. Their ships couldn't even detect the human vessels that were somehow killing their stars. Then Admiral Hayes's voice filled the chamber. Representatives of the Galactic Council, you are witnessing the end of the Kethvar hegemony. This is what happens when a species believes it has the right to judge others and decides they deserve to die. The display showed Kethvar Prime, where desperate civilians were streaming toward evacuation centers, but there weren't enough ships to save even a fraction of the population. 50 years ago, Hayes continued, humanity joined the galactic community with hope. We believed that intelligent species could work together, learn from each other, and build something better than any of us could create alone. The display shifted to show footage from New Geneva before the massacre. Happy families, successful research projects, children of different species playing together. The Kethvar destroyed that dream. They murdered 10 million people for the crime of cooperation. They celebrated that murder and promised to do it again. Now the display showed the massacre itself. Energy blasts destroying buildings, children dying in their schools. Dr. Sarah Chen's final message as her world burned. So we asked ourselves a question, Hayes said. If cooperation makes us weak, if peace makes us targets, if mercy gets our people killed, then what happens when humanity stops being cooperative, peaceful, and merciful? The answer was playing out in real time across 47 star systems. The Kethvar civilization was dying, not in war, but in darkness and cold. This is your answer, Hayes announced. This is what humanity becomes when you murder our children. The display showed the final evacuation ships leaving Kethvar Prime as the planet's surface began to freeze. Most of the population was still trapped on the dying world. But we are not the Kethvar, Hayes continued. We do not celebrate the deaths of innocents. Every Kethvar civilian who wishes to surrender will be evacuated to refugee camps on neutral worlds. We will not punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders. As he spoke, human ships began appearing throughout Kethvar space, but these weren't warships. They were massive evacuation vessels designed to hold millions of people. Any Kethvar who renounces the hegemony and accepts council administration will be saved, Hayes announced. Any Kethvar who continues to support their government's policies will share their fate. The evacuation was the most massive rescue operation in galactic history. Human ships with technology no one understood moved millions of Kethvar civilians to safety, but they left behind anyone who refused to surrender, anyone who still claimed the New Geneva massacre was justified. Supreme Arch Zolthek was among those who refused to leave. As his palace grew colder and darker, he sat on his throne and watched his empire die. Supramarch, Dr. Melkoth said. There's still time. We can evacuate to the human ships. Never, Zolthek replied. I am the ruler of the Kethvar hegemony. I do not beg for mercy from inferior species. Dr. Melkoth looked at him sadly, then walked toward the exit. Then you can die with your pride, Supramarch. I choose to live. She was one of the last to leave the dying world. 3 days later, 47 star systems were completely dark. The Kethvar hegemony was gone. 15 billion Kethvar had been evacuated by human ships and placed in refugee camps. The remaining 35 billion had chosen to stay with their dying. Worlds. Chancellor Santos addressed the galaxy one final time. The Kethvar hegemony judged 10 million innocent people and sentenced them to death for the crime of cooperation. Today we judge the Kethvar hegemony and found them guilty of murder. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Let this be the last time such judgment is necessary. The galaxy has seen what humanity is capable of when we choose to stop being peaceful. We prefer cooperation to conflict, mercy to vengeance, peace to war, but we will never again allow anyone to mistake our kindness for weakness. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. 47 dead star systems served as a permanent reminder of what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. In the refugee camps, the surviving Kethvar began the long process of rebuilding their society without the hegemony's ideology of species superiority. Many of them eventually integrated into the broader galactic community, working alongside humans and other species, but they never forgot the lesson of those dark stars. No one in the galaxy did. Dr. Sarah Chen's final words from New Geneva had become a prophecy. We trusted them. We thought all intelligent species could live together. Humanity had proven that different species could indeed live together, but only if they chose cooperation over domination, understanding over hatred, peace over violence. For those who made the wrong choice, the galaxy would remember what happened to the Kethvar hegemony. And in the cold darkness of 47 dead systems, the stars themselves bore witness to the price of judging humanity's mercy as weakness. 10 million dead had finally received their justice, and the galaxy would never be the same.